Since 2010, PowerUp.org has been dedicated to giving the gift of education by ensuring that all children, especially those at risk of being left behind, have the resources and the opportunities they need to grow up healthy and live productive lives. We want to remind listeners that the information provided in this show is strictly for informational purposes and is not intended as a substitute for advice from a professional. Some content contains discussions of traumatic health experiences. If you need support at any time, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK or text HOME to 741-741. During this time of social distancing and self-quarantine, we hope that listening to heroic stories and optimizing ideas can help us feel more connected to each other. Our mission of eliminating technology poverty through education is fulfilled by you. We reach over 5,000 students each year, and we are able to reach more because of your help. Teaching technology and life skills is a game changer for our future. And by listening to this show, you are helping us continue to fund our work with students, educators, and community partners around the globe. Visit PowerUp.org to find out how you are helping bridge the digital divide. From all of us, we hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy.
It's about taking your current reality and just putting your best foot forward, regardless of the struggles ahead of you, regardless of the challenges right in front of you. Even if you feel fear in your heart or in your mind, you have to take that step forward. And I believe that we all serve that role as a hero. It's about continuously moving forward.
My name is Denis Wisner, the host of Power Up Hero, a show about being the hero of your story. Power Up Hero is all about living a powered up life because let's face it, living your best life and juggling a busy workload can be close to impossible. Sometimes it can feel like you have to climb some unimaginable mountain and pull some superpowers from who knows where so you can just get it all done. This show is about the stories behind people who have been nominated as Power Up Heroes. We're going to talk about the mission they are on, the life they have built as proud heroes in our community. And for me, I just want you to know that being a Power Up Hero is about living your best life and being an agent of change, not only for yourself, but for your family and for your community. And through this whole show, and hopefully through this episode, we hope to help you become the best version of yourself, the best version that you could be. We want you to be that today. He is part of you, whether you are close or not, whether he was a constant part of your life or not. He impacted you, and in fact, you wouldn't exist today without him. You love him, except maybe you can't stand him. For better or worse, he is your dad. He is your father. And for some of y'all, he may just be your hero. Whether you're a dad looking for inspiration or someone looking for a way to show your own dad how much you love them, our guest today is, in my eyes, the role model of really and truly being the Power Up hero of fatherhood. Denis Wisner began his journey in Brooklyn, New York. Then he spent most of his adolescent years in Southern California and currently lives in Corpus Christi, Texas. He has a bachelor's degree in secondary education and a master's degree in educational leadership from Lamar University. He taught high school social studies for 13 years, and right now he is the school district's Instructional Technology Specialist. Denis assists the district's educators in integrating technology in the classroom for increased engagement and basically to ensure that students are future ready. I absolutely love that. And, I have to put this plug in. This person you're going to hear about today was a finalist for the secondary Teacher of the Year. Denis Wisner, a social studies teacher at Collegiate High School, was nominated as a finalist for our Secondary Teacher of the Year. Our guest today has been married for 16 years and has 3 boys. He's a certified health and life coach, and he also carries the title of Distinguished Toastmaster. Now, if y'all have not figured it out yet, we both have the same last name. So, in case you're wondering, we're doing this interview in our own house because I caught up with Denis Wisner at my house to celebrate and chat about Father's Day and how dads can be heroes in unexpected ways. And I'm just even more thrilled that my own husband has accepted an invitation to be nominated as a PowerUp hero. And of course, I nominated him. I'm very proud of that because I get to see this person be a hero in real life. I am that lens. I am the one who can see it in real life. And whether he was my husband or not, I can tell you right now, this is truly what a hero is, a power-up hero. Denis Wisner, my husband, Denis Wisner, father of my children. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Dude, did y'all hear that pronunciation? I mean, I think you brought your English with you. That was like absolutely perfect the way you said that. I love it. So tell me, Denis, I know I kind of gave everybody your bio, but what do you think you do for a living?
I serve the district in many ways, but really it's about building relationships with all the different educators in the district to make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel able to really bridge the gap with the digital divide that we have in our community, but more importantly, to take that digital divide, move forward so that we can prepare our students for the future. That is constantly changing every day, and so we have to adapt to essentially what the market needs, what the world needs. And my role is to make sure I can build those relationships so they can build their skill set, and so they're able to move forward with what challenges lay ahead of us.
Now, because I have this, I guess, lens where I live with you, during the COVID-19 situation, I noticed that your role became more pivotal than anything else in, I guess, education in our area. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Definitely. Now, as you all know, a lot of the learning happened online, which is a struggle for all stakeholders involved, parents, students, teachers as well. And so you had some teachers that they are fantastic teachers. However, with technology, maybe that be one of their weaknesses or something they haven't really explored or spent a lot of time on. And so that was my role. But also we have students that maybe were never taught by teachers how to engage online. And then we have obviously our parents who are having to juggle many things now with, helping their kids learn at home and working from home or, finding a new job. And so it's really been a challenging time for all. And so again, a lot of the conversation you hear about today is about connections and relationships and knowing that we're in this together, but providing that support. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about finding people where they're at and taking that next step forward. And the way you do that is, again, by building those relationships.
I love that. I love that. Finding people where they're at. And then, I guess, building on that, right? So you don't just start off with, this is how you're going to do it. It's more of, let's first figure out who you are, where you're at, what your capabilities are, and then we build upon that. I love it. And it kind of feeds into my next question for you, which is, we're calling you the power-up hero of fatherhood. And that's a big deal here at powerup.org. I think we've interviewed a bunch of people who are pretty strong leaders in our community. But for you, what does it mean to be a hero? What do you think a hero is?
Now, that is obviously a loaded question, and obviously we could assume there's some bias in this whole conversation. But with that said... No,
I'm actually going to just put a halt to that because, dude, I mean, come on. Give yourself some gratitude here for being just the most amazing human, right? So as much as I love you as your wife, you do a lot, and you really do project a reflection of the best version for people. So I want to congratulate you, first of all, for that. So know that when we're calling you a power-up hero and asking you what a hero is, it's because that's what you are.
Well, thank you for that. So going back to your question of what I think a hero is, I think at the end of the day, it's about taking your current reality and just putting your best foot forward, regardless of the struggles ahead of you, regardless of the challenges right in front of you. Even if you feel fear in your heart or in your mind, you have to take that step forward. And I believe that we all serve that role as a hero. And just being able to meet the needs and responsibilities of those around us, whether that's at home or whether that's the work that we provide to the community. It's about stepping up and taking those opportunities, regardless of the fear that might hold us back or regardless of the challenges that we face. It's about continuously moving forward.
I love it. And, sometimes I think about a hero being the type of person who not only helps us move forward, but is trying to help us build on the foundation we're on, increase that platform we're on. When you were born, right, your parents started somewhere and hopefully you're standing on a platform. Can you tell me a little bit about your family and the legacy that you hope to be continuing in your life?
So both my parents, they were not college educated. Father did not finish high school. Mother did a very little bit of college. And so that conversation really didn't take place as it does in some homes, as far as talking about getting an education, looking for a career and how education is tied to that. However, my mom was always there. She's the one that sacrificed. And also my stepfather, they sacrificed a lot throughout the whole process of me trying to find myself. And so I can say with regards to education, maybe that wasn't always a conversation, but the support for whatever I wanted to do, whether that was, finding my place in the workforce or, going the educational path. At the end of the day, they just supported whatever decision I had. And so I had a lot of autonomy in that decision. And I didn't really have kind of like several paths laid out for me like some parents may have for their children. And I want to say that it worked for me. At the end of the day, I think I've done well. And with that support, I was able to succeed in the avenues that I chose.
And as far as I'm concerned, I feel like sometimes when you don't have many options and you have the path laid out for you, it makes things easier, right? There's not this confusion of, I can do everything, so I'm going to try to do everything. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I think that it's nice to know what you want to do at a certain age. I think it helps. I think there's less distractions. It's almost like setting goals, right? So you're aware of the different options, but having really clarity helps a lot. And so I think for most people, as they get older, they do reach that clarity. But, in our younger years and adolescence, it's definitely a struggle that I think most people face. And so having an idea of what you want to do or having some support and some guidance, I think is helpful. I think it's helpful to have mentors at an early age and experiences that will guide you in a certain direction, because you can get lost. And I think a lot of people do.
So today we're celebrating fatherhood. We're celebrating Power Up Hero Fathers. And I'm so excited because I believe that you probably have some words of wisdom from your experience of being a father. What is one way that you can say that dads are heroes for their children?
I am a father. This is true. However, what I'm about to say really is directed to anyone who has a parent role. That could be a mother, father, uncle, grandmother, older brother, that had to take kind of the responsibility of the young ones. It's really about the opportunity that we have with those in our care, those that we influence. And the most important thing that I could say when being a hero is just to be present for those when you are with them. Listen to them. And not just obviously what they say, but also like the tone and kind of like what's going on in their life and really being a part of their lives. And that's really where you can step up to be a hero and think about the support that you can lend, because they do look up to you. They do look to you for support. They look to you for guidance. You're the one that is there in case they fall. And you want to make sure that day by day you are present. And so when the time comes when they do fall, because they will, we all do, to make sure that you're the one that they reach out to when they do fall and to lend that support. Because we know all too well that as kids get older, there's a distance that happens, especially around adolescence. And we want to make sure we maintain those connections. And the way we do that, again, is by being present with those that we care for, the ones that we love, the ones that look to us when they're in need.
I really love that. In fact, I think part of your words of wisdom have to do with, in general, just being a human, right? So even the people that you, I guess, are blessed to live with, right? So you live in a fatherhood situation with children, but even at work, right? Caring for the people who you work with. I love how you said that. So, Denis Wisner, I know that you're my husband, so this is just so strange because I'm really treating you like you're a real hero, which you are, I don't want to mistake anything of that, but I want to bring things back to your education skills. I think for me, one of the things that I've always known about you is that you are a real spokesperson indirectly for the power of technology in education. And I remember when you were teaching, you've been teaching 13 years and we've been married, way before you started teaching. And I always remember seeing you as that person who, when the kids were being told not to have phones in the classroom, you were the one who was like, yes, bring your phone and turn it on because we're going to be using it. So can you tell me about how you are a champion for unorthodox ideas of how to move the profession forward?
Indeed. With changing times, which is always, right? Things are always changing. We really have to tap into, again, kind of where people are at. And I recognize that students using the traditional teaching method weren't engaged full time, in other words. And so I went ahead and did a little bit of research and understood that it's a different generation. They learn differently. They interact with the world differently. And if I'm going to maximize my engagement with the students in my classroom, so that not only can I build relationships, but we can build on that and we can build on their knowledge and skills, then I'm also going to have to adapt and also learn some knowledge and skills of my own. And by doing so, I was kind of the outcast in the beginning years and years ago. I remember when I first started teaching, I had a website with resources for students, ways that they could get in touch online, ways they can access content. Now that's big, right? We have LMSs like Canvas and Google Classroom and many others that allow for this to happen. But this is something that, I saw a need for years ago because I knew that this is a different generation and I knew they need to be engaged in a different way. And earlier you mentioned that my goal and the way in which I serve is to have our community of students future ready. And it's really kind of a buzzword, but future ready is forever changing and forever evolving. And so we must also do the same. And as educators in the past, we had to just know our content, understand some classroom management. Now you have to be a designer, right? You have to know different ways to engage students. You have to use technology. You have to meet students where they're at. And so teaching wasn't or isn't what it used to be many years ago. And I've recognized that, saw the power of that. And that's why I'm in my current position as an Instructional Technology Specialist serving the district.
And in that thread, I think, we're here with COVID-19, this pandemic that happened. Your role became even more critical, helping teachers understand how technology is important, which means pulling them out of their comfort zone, right? You're helping some teachers who may not have realized that they were comfortable teaching face-to-face, moving into a classroom and just owning the classroom, and now no more. They have to figure out how to project their energy and their skills of teaching virtually. I'm always thinking about educational issues. You know this, Wisner, because we live in the same house. And we're always just trying to consider ways that we can be part of the solution. And when we started the organization PowerUp, it was really mostly, now it's expanded a little bit, but we really have always just focused on powering up communities in terms of bridging the digital divide. Now, I don't want to fully load the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you, Denis, what are some of the education issues or trends that you consider things that we need to plan for the future?
Great question. And this is something I could probably say that our district is moving towards more and more every year, which is one of which is coding, understanding the language of coding and being able to take code and create things. It's just a different way to create another language. And
now, can I just interrupt you? Because I feel like people might think that I knew you were going to say that and I'm feeding you, but I had no idea you were going to say that. And did you know, Wisner, that I'm trying to write a book about algorithms?
I do know that you are interested in algorithms and how it correlates to human behavior. But
I know! This is so epic. Yes. So your answer is just on point. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I just got super excited. Continue, Wisner.
No, definitely. And so coding has really grown the last 2 years. It's something a couple of my colleagues and I, we always talk about, and it's not even in our realm, so to speak. It's not in our wheelhouse. And so I'm not a coder. I didn't go to school for coding, but I recognize the importance and just understanding that we need to provide this opportunity. Thank goodness I work for a director who also understands that. And so she has support our district and moved our district forward. And so we work with an organization, a platform called learning.com, and they have coding for students. And it really all starts with understanding sequencing and things of that nature and categorizing. And so little ones as young as in first and second grade are able to engage in kind of thinking in algorithms or thinking in code so that it kind of lends itself well once they move through the grade levels. And right now, currently this is kind of like, I guess, the latest and greatest. A lot of folks didn't know this in the district, but we have some other coding going on, like some block coding, things of that nature. But now we're looking into finally creating opportunities to learn Python in our high schools to where students can graduate with that certificate. So they'd be ready to enter the field of programming. And obviously, as you know, there's a high need for that. And I'm thinking of Elon Musk right now, and he's famous for a quote, and this is loosely quoted here, where he says, I don't want to see someone who applies to one of my enterprises. I don't want to see, their doctorates. I don't want to see their degrees. I'm going to give you a coding test, and if you can pass that, you have a job with me. And so there has been a shift with regards to what education looks like and what the industry is asking for. And so I'm just happy to say that the district that I'm working for, we're supporting that opportunity for our students in our community.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you guys are strengthening the teaching profession. You're improving it. You're changing it. Yeah, you're being change agents on that, I guess, lens, right, of trying to do something different.
Exactly. And actually, something that kind of saddened our office this year with COVID and everything that's happening with that is that we were going to have our first ever middle school coding competition. And it was going to be kind of like a relay where a student had to pick up on a code and they had to do a certain amount of code. And then when the timer went off, the next student had to come in that was part of the team and had to figure out where they were with the code and continue. And we had this elaborate competition ready, but unfortunately it wasn't able to happen. We'll pick up that baton later on for sure. But now we're moving forward with other things, like I said, with coding for high school, but also part of that, robotics is really big in our district, and that's also expanding. And something that we're looking into, and there's some grants that are currently being written for virtual robotics. And so essentially a lot of the same coding language that you would use for robots are now being used virtually. And the timing is actually perfect because if we are unable to, when I say we, I mean educators and students are unable to meet physically, now with this new online virtual platform, students can interact with each other using robotics online. And that code is actually downloadable as Java as well to physical robots. And so it's a really exciting time. And not only that, well, you've actually been to several robotics competitions and you know how exciting that is. There's also competitions with virtual robotics as well. And so some exciting definitely down the line.
In fact, when you said virtual robotics, I thought to myself, are you kidding me right now? So we're talking about being able to code a robot from anywhere in the world. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct, 100%. And so what this does, it allows for, and you're talking about bridging the digital divide. And so anyone who works with robotics clubs or is a sponsor of knows that they're very expensive. You're talking about in the thousands, tens of thousands, really, to compete. Virtual robotics is a small fraction of that price. And so, again, bridging that digital divide and allowing access to schools and communities that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. It's a fantastic, really fantastic thing and in a fantastic, really time frame in which for this to land.
You know, and I always think about how you guys as educators, right? So you've been working for the school district for a long time. And can I just put in a plug for your director, Carrie? You know, when you get home, I have to say this, like, I'm totally like, half of me is like, okay, stop telling me about Carrie, you know, but another half of me is like, I want to come work for her. Could you hire me? No, kidding. You have the most amazing supervisor. I think she's amazing. She's not only forward thinking, but I think, her heart is there in terms of optimizing you to be the best person you can be for your role. But let's talk about you guys as a team, right? You're instructional technologists, right? That is her role as well. She's a champion for you guys to do that. And your jobs are to build relationships between the people who are educators and technology, right? So whether or not they like the technology, they have to connect with it, right? So I just feel like when I hear you talking, I've now been able to really hear and see you working, right? Because you were working from home and we were both working from home heavily for a few weeks before I had to end up going back into the office more full time. So I was hearing you in your daily meetings with your team, and I was hearing you coaching teachers through work and doing trainings for teachers. And so I really got to really have a good insider view of the work that you do here in our community. And I mean, I just have to point this out to our audience that educators need to have relationships with stakeholders in our community, because I think even as much as we put the pressure on our local school districts to help with education, I think it's really our local businesses and industries that need to be sensitive to the point that you have to share the information on what the trends are in terms of what the kids need to be successful when they graduate, right? Because it doesn't help if the kid went through school, but they know how to do a certain thing, but they don't know how to live life and how to get a job, right? So I've heard you as you're talking through the things that you talk through. You're talking about things that are forward thinking. You're talking about things that are going to help the kids be valuable. They're going to be an asset into the future. And in a previous interview, I was talking to someone and we were talking about how if you're not virtual, if you don't know how to use technology, based on COVID-19, you're going to become irrelevant, right? Do you agree, Wisner?
I agree. And sadly enough, there were some educators that were close to retirement, and they simply said, that's enough, I'm done. And, others went ahead and took the opportunity. And even like, as I mentioned earlier, as being heroes is stepping into that fear, which is not comfortable, which is challenging, which is nerve-wracking. And now they are so thankful and so grateful for the opportunity to grow. And that's, I believe, really in any aspect of your life is taking that challenge on and being able to move forward, because now they realize, wow, there's all these different great tools. And I'll be the first one to say, it's all about pedagogy first. It's about the content first. Technology is never first. However, you are correct. If you don't have that next layer, right, of a skill set to be able to utilize technology, you're at a disadvantage. Not only are you a disadvantage to yourself, but a disadvantage and a disservice to your students, because that is the age in which we live. And now more so than ever, with so many different ways that this virus could change our community moving forward, we really need to prepare for that.
We do, and I think about the economic landscape of Corpus Christi, how it's evolving and how we talk about this, how it's growing, right? How Corpus is just becoming, not only is Corpus Christi the number one crude oil exporter, we are growing and becoming even stronger, as a player, I guess you can say, in the nation, the best city in the state of Texas, as I like to say. But I think about how we have to evolve and adapt to the needs and the wants of what our community needs, and how imperative it is that we become responsive to that. And so tell me a little bit about how you're doing maybe some uncomfort zone work, right? So how are you helping people adapt to change in terms of education? Because we can teach people how to code all day long, but teaching them how to code today doesn't mean that they're going to be successful in solving our problems into the future. We need to recognize that it is important to learn not only how to do the work today, but how to adapt into the future. How is the work you're doing helping that happen in Corpus Christi?
Great question. And that's something that our office, and especially our director, she always emphasizes. Any kind of training we build, right from the beginning, it's about asking why. Why are we doing this? What is the reason? What will be the outcomes? And being able to understand why we do what we do. And if we can't understand the why, then there's not going to be the motivation to continue. And you're correct with regards to, it's not just about the new technology. It's because it will change, and everything does change. It's about being able to adapt, and understanding the why will actually lead to you powering up, plug it in, to be able to adapt. Because here's why. If your reason why that, like, for example, my reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is to serve the people where they are at, to help them be more successful in the classroom, to engage students so they can raise the rigor and they can continue those relationships so that as a community, we all rise, right? And so whatever happens next with our economy, with technology, it's irrelevant to a degree, because it's about my why. It's about me supporting those that I serve.
It's about your why. So let's bring it back to you, Wisner. I think we've talked really deep about education issues and the economy. But I want to hear about your experience of being a father. So I'm going to ask you a question. And this may be just a self-serving question, but what is the best gift you've ever received for Father's Day? And or maybe what was the best way that you were celebrated as a father?
For me, it's really irrelevant kind of what I receive. I think the most important thing, and this is not even just as a father, this is kind of just as an individual. So this could be a birthday, this could be, a family event like Thanksgiving or Christmas. To me, it's about the time. It's about coming together, no distractions, and really just kind of enjoying each other's company, playing games, being present. To me, that's the best gift. And yeah, I love the crafts when they're small and it's got their handprint, and Thanksgiving, have the little feathers with the turkey, right? And all that. Or even something like, I remember, our oldest son creating pottery for us. It's so thoughtful in the time that they put in that. But at the end of the day, I think it's the time. It's the time that we spend together, because in this day and age, it's so hard to come by to really just be in the moment, to be present. And so that would be my favorite gift with any family is just that time.
I love it. I love it, because I always say that time is the most valuable resource. You can never get it back. You can make more money, but you can't get more time.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any words of wisdom on fathering?
I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. If I didn't, is again going back to being present. It's about listening. It's about having the longest day in the world, coming home and really just wanting to go to sleep. But we have to just pause and set our intentions and reflect back on, the people that we want to become and who we are, and listen and be present with the ones that we love. Because after a long day, we can lose sight of that. We really need to remind ourselves the responsibility that we have to our children. And that is knowing that we're there for them, and listening is a part of that, but also comforting them and giving them advice and just letting them know that you'll be there for them regardless. And it's not always easy to do, but it's something that always feels good when you do it.
I love that. I love that, because like I said earlier, I feel like you are a reflection of what I aspire for. And I feel like sometimes I'm building, and I lose sight of that. And I always say it's because you can't do everything perfectly. And sometimes you're in a different season, and it's always just great to have a support system like you who exists, because, if you're on a team and you're trying to make things work and your teammates are not helping you, then you're going to fail. You're not going to be successful. You're going to lose. And so you've been such a huge support system for me in terms of supporting me with the work I've been needing to do for our family. And so I'm just feeling very lucky. So do you believe that being a hero is luck? Like, for example, me finding you, Denis Wisner, or you finding me and us getting together, I just totally, absolutely love you. Or do you think that you have to work at it, right? So the question is, do you believe being a hero is by luck, or have you worked at it?
So being a hero, I don't believe anybody is born with it or it's luck. And so even fictional heroes, right? So you can think about Superman, you can think about, Wonder Woman, whoever you align yourself with, fictional superheroes, right? They also have their trials and tribulations. It's never just something that happens. It's something that not only do you have to work for, but you continually have to improve to maintain yourself as a hero. And being able to see through all the chaos in the world and all the things that can stop you, instead focusing on what will pull you through. And I'm glad you mentioned a second ago about having that support system and being a hero. I think part of being a hero is understanding that you can't do it by yourself, and understanding that you need to value that support system if you want to be successful, not just as an individual, but as a collective. And so definitely a hero is something you have to work for, but to be very effective, dare I say, a superhero, you have to do it with others. You have to be able to make yourself vulnerable and ask for help when you need it from others.
I love that. I love that. And I love how you even talked about how a hero is not necessarily a person who everything just comes easy for them. They are a hero because they're able to persevere through trials and tribulations. So what may be one or two challenges that you have faced in your life?
I think one of the most important crossroads I had to face was as a teenager. I had grown up in pretty violent environments, and a point you want to talk about fear of maybe losing your life, or being in a school that's gang infested, or living in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe to walk down the street. And so that changed my identity in many ways. And it's difficult. And there's a lot of people in that same situation that have to face themselves and try to figure out, what do I do? Because part of anybody in that situation where you live in an environment full of violence and fear is to adapt. That's just kind of the natural inclination. And so to adapt means that you have to change maybe to something that you don't want to be. And that happens to a lot of people, and they end up losing themselves. And so I am thankful that I was able to change my environment. My mother, she remarried and we moved. And so I was able to kind of start over in a way as a result of my environment changing, and having just a few people, a few kind of, you could say, different influences than I had prior, really was a game changer. And for most people, when you asked a second ago, are heroes born or is it luck? I think I am very lucky to have changed my environment, and not everyone has that same opportunity or won't have that same luck. And so at the end of the day, the only other thing you can do is to align yourselves with individuals who really speak to your character and who you want to be.
And I agree with that, and I mean, I guess we both kind of agree that it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of working at it, right? So you make your luck, and you don't just show up and imagine that everything's going to work out perfectly. You create the situation so that when the thing that you need happens, you're ready for it, right? So you work at it so that when the opportunity comes, like, for example, when I met you, Wisner, like, I don't know whether I was working on myself. There's no such thing as working on yourself. I think if you're just the person you are, maybe you attract the people that you want to have in your life. And so I just feel really lucky that I get to spend my life with you. Like, I think I am truly lucky that you live with me. And
obviously, same here. We're not going to, let listeners get all, mopey, but obviously the same goes for you. It's true is that, without you.
Well, can I just tell you, I sometimes secretly come to your desk to look at your boards because I don't even know. You're like this person who just does everything perfectly. And I look just so that I can remind myself, like, what is this? And then sometimes I'll come to you and I'll say, hey, babe, I saw that. What is that? And you explain it to me. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, he does the dishes. He takes the boys to school. He cooks all the food. You hug and kiss me like you haven't seen me for years, And I just think to myself, how do you even have time to come up with this board that you just made, And I know I may be speaking maybe too much information, but the point here is I just think to myself how lucky I am, because it's not every day that somebody could have the opportunity to live in a household where they're motivated. Does that make sense?
I agree. I wasn't always that way. Going back to, putting in the work. And eventually you find kind of what feels good and what gives you energy, right? Mm-hmm. Is understanding or recognizing as you progress through your life is, what when you do it just gives you endless energy to continue that. And part of what I do, what you're talking about, that's just me being creative in a way where I have to, like, let's say organize, but I want to be creative with how I do that. And so, the end product is sometimes something that I want to look at and be like, I like the way that looks, and I like the way that feels. And on top of that, I'm organized. Yeah.
I love it. I feel organized when you share stuff with me, because you always share with me your Trello boards, or you'll share with me your spreadsheets or whatever it is that you're doing. And I'm like, I want to do that. Yeah. So I always learn from you. So imagine yourself 5 to 10 years from now. What do you see?
All right. So 5 to 10 years from now, this isn't a job interview. So I'll go ahead and rephrase the question or rephrase the answer in a way that, makes sense for this particular situation. I'm really I'm content with what I have, and I love what I do. And I'm really appreciative, and I have gratitude for everything I have. And so I almost want to say that I kind of want what I have now, but just more of it, if that makes sense. So more influence, right? Because my intentions are good, and I'm here to serve people. And so being able to share what I have for people that see value in what I have, I'd love to continue that. I would love to continue to travel. I would love to continue building relationships. I would love to continue growing as a family. And so 5 to 10 years from now, as long as, I have my family and we continue to grow together, we continue to experience this life together, I'm a happy man.
I love it. I love it. And it almost sounds like we just have to level up our relationship then. I think we're on our way anyway. We're always planning to just be the best version of ourselves for each other. So I always feel like I have a lot of work to do. So thank you so much for that. So Dennis, we're just going to do some quick fire questions for you. And you may not know the answers, but I hope you do. So what is your favorite book?
Right. My favorite book, one of my favorite books, it's hard to say my favorite, right? However, one of my favorite books is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday. I didn't know. Okay. I didn't know you like Ryan Holiday like that. I mean, for me, Ryan Holiday is all about the Daily Stoic. Oh my goodness.
I actually have a quote that relates to Stoicism. However, that book is so important because this is for everyone that listens. We all have challenges. They're just in different ways in which, they're provided to us. But that book really hit home for me for understanding that looking at something as a negative, as a challenge, and something in my way could really be turned into an opportunity, and not just an opportunity to kind of get past to the next thing, but really a true opportunity to grow. And that's what that is all about. Is I think a lot of times in life, we see something and it's challenging, or it could be something new at work or something new at home. But if we put time and energy into that obstacle, what appears to be an obstacle is really an opportunity for us to grow. And the funny thing is it's not just you by yourself. All those involved in that obstacle also have the opportunity to grow. And I've seen that time and time again, is that when faced with a challenge, when I'm in it to also not just win it for myself, but kind of like a win-win situation for all parties involved, we all grow together. And that's why I love that book.
I love how you said the win-win for everybody, but it almost sounds like even in a lose-lose situation, we all learn, right? Because you take the lesson from the failure. So that's when we lose together, we learn together. So another question really quickly, what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie is The Matrix. I love the idea. Again, it's futuristic. I'm kind of a techie, and so that intrigues me, just the storyline behind it. I know folks, probably people that watch it today, and they're critical of the graphics, but I just, the storyline itself is just so interesting. But there's even a deeper meaning behind kind of like the just whole futuristic digital apocalypse, if you will, where robots take over, but almost the idea of how to be open to ideas, like take the blue pill or the red pill, right? And so I love that moment where Neo has to decide, do you want to still live in a fake reality, or do you want to know the truth and be able to take on what this reality has to offer for you? It's almost like Plato's cave, going back to Greek philosophy and understanding there's a whole other world out there. And it really plays to the idea of mindset and, how if we can change our lens on what we look through and how we view the world, we can change that world. And so that's why I love The Matrix. It's a fantastic movie.
I love it. I love it. And in fact, when you were talking about the blue pill and the red pill, I was just thinking, and sometimes we don't know, like we knew as audiences watching that the life that was what was perceived as reality was not reality. And Neo did not know that when he took the other pill, that it was going to take him to reality. So sometimes you don't even know, right? You don't know. You have to just take a chance, right? You have to just take a chance.
That's right.
Make it happen. Okay, real quick, Wisner, what's your favorite song?
Ooh, all right. This is really cheesy, y'all, but I'm an optimist at heart. I'm also a realist. I'm a optimistic realist. And I just love Bobby McFerrin, old school, don't worry, be happy. Always puts a smile on my face. And I say, when I die, play that at my funeral because, we had time together and there's more and better things to come. But don't worry, be happy. Even at the worst of times and the worst of days, there's still things to be grateful for. So don't worry, be happy.
Right. And I know that is your favorite song because sometimes you tell Alexa, play the song. But there's also another song which I think used to be your favorite.
Take a look at the help section.
You just set off Alexa, but the Wi-Fi is off.
Did I set? Oh my goodness. How perfect is that? Technology. There's a song you used to play right after graduation. Don't worry, be happy. Was that what the one? Or which one is it? There's a song that you used to play every single time and we would wake up in the morning to it. Which song was it? I can't even remember now. Anyway, there was another song that you really liked. Okay, so now, Mr. Wisner, really quickly, and this is the last fast fire, and we're not really doing fast fires here because I love how you're elaborating, so keep it going. What is your favorite quote, Wisner?
Favorite quote is by Epictetus, and he says, "It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters." And if I could give just a quick story where I had the blessing of another individual in our community that made me see that. And so I was kind of in a rush. It's after work. And you know, we kind of have this tradition going on for a while now where I pick up pizza on Friday, right? And so I pull up to Domino's and I see there's like a car that's not really parked well, you know, with regards to like in the space, and they're really kind of almost in the other lane, and the other car on the other side is parked the same. And so the parking is in the front. So there's parking in the front. I want the front parking, right? Because I'm just trying to get in and get out. There's other parking spots, but they're kind of far away. But what I did was I went straight into that parking spot, knowing that it would probably be an inconvenience for all those involved. And then when I go back, I get the pizza and I go back to my car. There's a gentleman there and he said, "Hey," he starts getting upset. "Why did you park like that?" So I start to proceed to argue with the guy about how he is parked. And then I don't know what it was. It was almost like premonition where I just had like this outer body experience where I could see the situation. And I just stopped myself and I said, "You know what?" I said, "I apologize. I could have parked somewhere else, but instead I created a situation." And it was crazy. It was crazy how the guy, his whole demeanor changed. And he said, "You know what?" He said, I should have parked a little better too. It was like this moment of humanity over a parking spot. But I had a choice to change my reaction. And I started to go down that negative path to kind of like give that negative energy back to that individual. But thank goodness, as a blessing for that moment in time, I was able to just kind of see a different perspective and apologize. And in so doing, kind of raising humanity to a different level and having that individual on his side also apologize. It was beautiful.
Oh my goodness, Wisner, you never even told me that story. And
I got a lot of stories.
It's like every day I'm like falling more in love with you. Oh my goodness, that is an amazing story. And I mean, can you repeat the quote for us? Because I know that I heard it and I heard the story, but I want to hear it again.
So it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus.
I love it.
Philosopher, Stoic philosopher.
Yes, I love it. So thank you so much. So how do you wake up in the morning? Essentially, if you had a masterpiece day, the perfect day, how would you wake up?
Great question. And I think everyone should ask themselves this question regularly. And right now, I'm actually doing really well with my new routine. Things come in seasons, as you mentioned. And really, it changes based upon what your life is currently. And so what I'm going to share with you may not fit with you at the times, but for me right now, it's working, and it's something that I've refined over the years. And so for me, when I wake up, it's 5 a.m. Sometimes I wake up on my own, but I have an alarm clock with a vibration just to make sure that I don't wake other folks up, but to make sure I wake up. And I start off with my mind. You know, when we wake up early, our mind is still malleable. It's still open to ideas because of the different brain waves that we have when we wake up. And what I do is I first want to strengthen my focus. And so I have actually 3 phases of meditation that I go through. And so I start with 5 minutes of breathing. And so essentially I have a breathing exercise in which I'm focusing on my breath and counting my breaths, which allows me to focus. Then I move into a meditation, which is all about visualization. And this essentially aligns my current state with my future state and everything in between that will get me there. And so I walk through a visualization in my mind. that aligns my intentions for the day with what I want to become and where I'm going. Lastly, I listen to affirmations that I've recorded, that I've kind of curated over time, that get my mindset right for the day. Things that I want going in my head all day. It's almost like when you have a song in your head, you just end up singing. I want my affirmations to be something that's the song in my head. And so doing that in the morning helps me accomplish that. So that is about 30 minutes. I know it sounded like a lot, but if you just chunk that out, that's about 30 minutes. I'm engaged in meditation. And then for about the next 30 minutes, I engage in some type of physical movement. Physical movement is not only important for your body, but also your mind. And so if you feel down, if you feel depressed, if you've been inside the house because of COVID, if you haven't had a lot of movement lately, more than likely, you're also feeling down. You may even feel depressed. And so I challenge you just to have some type of movement where you really get the blood flowing, the heart beating faster, and you will feel different. But what I do, essentially, I like to keep things fresh. I like to keep things different, even in the week. And so I have days when I am, having a jog, working out with weights. I have a day when I'm doing yoga or doing Qigong, doing martial arts. And so I keep variety in the movement that I do because I want to keep it fresh. I want to keep it interesting. And I also know that if I do these different things, I'm actually challenging my body in different ways. And so physically, I'm optimizing myself because I am giving my body different ways in which it has to adapt. If you challenge your mind, it will adapt. The same is true for your body. If you challenge your body, it will adapt. And so that's something that kind of like is a little side benefit for that. The last thing I have as a morning routine is I spend the next 30 minutes after that. So at this point, it's 6 o'clock. And I focus on something that I'm wanting to learn at that point in time. And for me right now, that's Spanish. I think knowing more than one language is not only beneficial for you as a person to communicate with other people, especially I live in South Texas. And so it makes sense. It's logical to go ahead and learn Spanish because I'm in a region of Spanish-speaking people. It also has benefits for the brain, right, of learning a different language. And it's something that when you live in an area where you have essentially a lot of people that speak two languages, it also shows a certain level of respect when you're able to speak to someone in their language. And that's something that I want to achieve as well, is be able to speak to people in their language. It just automatically, provides a certain level of respect to those individuals. And you don't even have to be a great speaker in the language. The fact that you're trying to communicate with people in their native tongue allows for that relationship to begin. And that's essentially my morning practice in a nutshell: meditation, physical movement, and then some type of learning. And mine happens to be learning a language right now.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your wake up to power up morning routine, Wisner. And I just have to point out that I am just blessed to have you. And I absolutely love that your power up routine happens in my own house. So I get to see you and model what you do. So everybody thinks that I'm amazing, but you need to know that I live with the most amazing person who models the way for me to follow. Thank you, Wisner.
You're welcome.
So we all know in this journey of life, we make plans and then Murphy's Law shows up and says, oh, sorry. How do you deal with failure? When things don't go your way, Dennis, how do you deal?
I know my cousin, Thomas, I learned a lot of this from him growing up, just watching him. He's just a little bit older, just by a little bit, but we have a similar demeanor. And one way that we cope with things outside our control or failures in the mix, or we're just frustrated with life, the first thing we do is we isolate ourselves. And so, unfortunately, it may seem cold to for some folks that are, outside my immediate family, I may just seem kind of to myself. But I think that's really important, is to do some self-reflection. It's kind of like the next thing that I do while I'm in that kind of like isolating. Maybe I'll meditate more. Maybe I just kind of not engaging at work, or maybe even at home. But it depends on the level of failure, right? I think it's healthy to have some time, some alone time to process that. And I think that's really, really important. And then just going back to my principles, going back to my why. What are the next steps based on that? And so I think once, as an individual, we are able to process whatever energy, whatever opportunity we had lost, if we can just take time to reflect on the process, learn from it, right? That's obviously very important. And then take a look at our principles and see, all right, didn't go well. What is the next step for me to move forward? Because I can't stay here. I know that, wallowing self-pity is never healthy, but isolating yourself initially to process, I think, is healthy. And that's something that I do when faced with failure.
Wow, I love that. And so I guess, basically, if something's not working out, I guess go back in, right? So go in and see maybe where you can grow from it, right? And don't continue moving forward. Go back in and realize how you can do better, right?
That's right. You have to figure out, look at all the different pieces that were in play to see all the different perspectives that weren't so obvious when you were in the thick of it. Able to just process that is super important. And I think that's anyone who deals with failure or even any type of trauma.
One of the things that I'm working on is a PowerUp failure journal. And one of the things that me, Wisner, I've tried to do so many things and we fail at them, right? And most recently, I can tell you one of my biggest failures was giving what I don't want to call it this, but I thought I did a pretty good speech for one of our competitions, our speech competitions. Okay. And then later to find out that I lost, I really felt that. I mean, I don't even know whether I felt failure as much as I felt that. But I think for me, it's just an opportunity to document, right? So first of all, how did you feel? What did you expect to happen that didn't happen? And what did you contribute to the failure? So anyway, I'm working on it. And I know it sounds silly, but I feel like we should collect our failures in a journal. Do you agree?
I agree, because that's how you grow. That's the way you're going to grow, is recognize that. And what's really fantastic about that whole idea is you looking back at that, because that's how you see how you grow.
Yeah, and kind of indirectly, I'm kind of pulling you into that project. So feel free to join me in developing a failure journal. And, the whole goal here is that when you fail, you should have a book that you go to and you just journal in it. And you just put it out there and it asks you the right questions so that the reality is in front of you. Because when you're failing, I think you see red. At least I see red. I can't think, I can't breathe, I can't see. I'm just crying and I'm just sad and I'm just frustrated. And I remember knowing that I'm an Optimize coach. I would go back to my Optimize journal, which is my Carpe Diem, and I would feel calmer. And I think for failures, we need that kind of a thing to be able to just step by step walk through what the failure was. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So yes, join me in this project, Wisner. We can do this together. Okay.
Well, since you pulled me in, I can give some folks some heads up on what would probably be in the beginning of that.
Okay, go ahead, Wisner. Tell us.
And you've kind of already outlined it, which is you have to really put forth your values and what drives you and what at your core is you. And so having at the front of the journal to give you guidance when you go to that journal is a must. And so that's something that has to be done before you start writing down failures is in your core that strengthens you regardless of any failure will be true.
So it's almost like having a summary of our life book. So we did life book together. So almost like a one-page summary of life book before you start writing in the journal. So you remind yourself of how much of a hero you are. Yes, you have failed, but you're a hero. Now let's talk about this specific failure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. This show was truly amazing. I had the honor of having to interview my husband, Denis Wisner, who is the father of my children, for this Father's Day episode. If you want to find out more about the PowerUp hero we just interviewed, go to our podcast page, which is poweruphero.org. And if you want to tell us your story, visit poweruphero.org. We want you on the show. We want your positive attitude, your commitment to being a hero in our community. And again, that website is poweruphero.org. I am so excited for you to be joining me on this podcast journey so you can power up your life to live to your fullest potential. Once again, I'm Lisa Wisner. Be sure to subscribe to Power Up Hero on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, everywhere and anywhere you tune in to your podcasts. We hope you will be educated, inspired, and encouraged to be a hero for the community that we serve, for the teams that we serve with, for the families and friends that we come in contact with, for our own careers, for ourselves, because the world needs heroes today more than ever before. Make it a powered up day.